We begin tonight at 6 with Richard Allen's attorneys filing arguments on why his convictions in the Delphi murders case should now be overturned.
Rich and I spent the day reviewing the 113-page appeals brief and joins us now once again in studio with more details on that court document. Rich.
Well, the attorneys for Richard Allen make three main points. They say the search of his home was unconstitutional, the prison confessions he made were under psychotic coercion, and lots of evidence they wanted to present was excluded. This is a sketch of the murder scene. Allen's attorneys say the judge should have allowed evidence that this was a ritualistic killing based in Odinism. The way the bodies of the girls were placed and the sticks arranged on their bodies pointed to a Norse pagan ritual, they say. The appeals brief says that law enforcement also failed to pursue leads into two other suspects who allegedly practiced Norse paganism. The attorneys also say that evidence indicated the bodies may have hung upside down during the murders, and they argue that law enforcement did not believe that Richard Allen could have acted alone in the murders. The appeals brief concludes, because the trial court prohibited the jury from hearing Allen's side of the story, showing how law enforcement went down the wrong path, justice could not be done. We asked defense attorney and former deputy prosecutor Brad Banks to review this appeals brief.
The Odinism argument was not allowed to be pursued at all. There was a significant part of the investigation in this case that was looking into that. An expert professor and ritualistic killings that was tapped into by the law enforcement that said this scene was consistent with that. The crux of their argument is there's a lot of stuff that we didn't get to present as defense, and we should have been able to present it as defense. And because of that, we should get another try at it.
Richard Allen was sentenced about a year ago to 130 years in prison for the murders of Libby German and Abby Williams in February 2017. Now the Attorney General will file a response on behalf of the state, and Allen's attorneys could reply to that response. And the Court of Appeals could ask for oral arguments on this case before issuing a ruling.
And we've been covering this case for years now. In fact, ever since we first learned of those murders dating back to 2017. To get up to speed, you can stream our special. It's called Justice for Abby and Libby. It recaps all the big events from the case, which includes the arrest, the trial, and the sentencing of Richard Allen. It's available right now on our free streaming app, which is WTHR Plus.
A strong front moving through central Indiana right now. We can see it here with the wind gusts. We had a gust at 45 miles per hour in Indianapolis. Those strong winds will move from west to east over the next couple of hours. We can also see that strong front on radar, bringing some very heavy rain. It's into Marion, approaching Alexandria. Anderson, you will be next. It's Noblesville, Fishers, east side of Marion County, all the way south through Bedford with heavy rain and strong winds right now. The rain is changing over to some snow on the back side of this front, and we can see that across the western sections of Illinois, a good part of Iowa. It's not going to be a lot of snow, but with a rapid temperature drop and a few bursts of snow, a slick start tomorrow morning. Temperatures will be in the teens to start, wind chills near zero. We may end up with some school delays due to that flash freeze, and trade the umbrella for the heavy coat. Highs tomorrow only in the 20s.
All right, Angela, thanks. Tonight at 6, 3 juveniles are now under arrest, accused of getting into a fight and causing an evacuation at the Carmel Clay Library. The director of that library tonight is telling 13 News a fight broke out Tuesday in the community room before then spilling out into the main hallway. That's when officers evacuated the building, including hundreds of young people. A spokesperson for the Carmel Clay schools sent us the statement saying, "We are disappointed in the actions of the 3 students involved. Their behavior does not reflect the expectations we hold for our students. It is unfortunate the actions of a few can jeopardize a strong partnership with the library and bring negative attention to our community."
Tonight at 6 o'clock, we're now learning more than a dozen people were denied from participating in yet another naturalization ceremony here in Indianapolis. The Marion County Clerk's Office tells us 100 people initially were invited, but 15 were notified this week they were no longer eligible, and at least 2 were turned away at that ceremony today. It comes as the Trump administration announced its expansion of a travel ban to include 5 more countries. Just last week, we saw 38 people turned away from another naturalization ceremony in Indy as a result of the president's travel ban. And we have good news tonight for the state of Indiana when it comes to looking ahead to its financial future.
The state budget committee says Indiana is projected to bring in more money than expected over the next couple of years. And now some Indiana lawmakers want to restore funding to programs that saw cuts in last year's budget.
And that includes Martin University, which is pausing operations starting next semester. Our State House reporter Emily Longnecker is here to explain.
Yeah, this was a very different picture than the forecast that we got in April. Today, we learned that over the next 2 years, Indiana is expected to bring in twice the amount of revenue to the tune of about $5 billion. And we also learned the state is expected to spend less over the next 2 years on Medicaid. That news has Democratic State Representative Greg Porter calling for the budget to be reopened to restore funding to some programs that saw cuts in the budget last year. Porter also asked for the state to give $5 million to Martin University. The state's only historically black university announced recently it would be closing because of financial difficulties and dropping enrollment numbers. In the budget previous to last year's, Martin University received $5 million. That money was not included in the last budget. Porter's request was voted down.
It was really never appropriated in the budget, and what we were doing was just reviewing money that had been appropriated in the budget. So I think that's an item for discussion, in the next budget cycle.
They said it wasn't appropriated, but you know what? We have a thing what you call augmentation, and they can augment anything they want to. If there's a will, there's a way.
And recently, again, Martin University paused all of its operations and let go of its employees. Alumni and current students are still demanding answers as to how the school got to this point. At the Indiana State House, Emily Longnecker, 13 News.
2 weeks from today, the IU Hoosiers play in the Rose Bowl.
Out in Pasadena, and before the kickoff there, hundreds of thousands of people will be gathering the morning of for the New Year's Day parade. It is the Rose Parade. It's going to step off bright and early at 8 o'clock in the morning. It's all the pageantry that leads up to that college football playoff game later that afternoon.
And today, city leaders out in California talked about keeping people safe following the attack in New Orleans earlier this year before the Sugar Bowl.
The idea here is to make sure that we have the perimeter security set up. I can't discuss all of the details, but we will have our meridian barriers up. We will have marked units. We'll have observation towers. We'll have air assets. We'll have a lot of folks doing their thing to make sure that people can come here and enjoy themselves without worry.
So if you're going to the Rose Bowl game, we want to let you know they're going to have a clear bag policy at that stadium.